Okay, Scott Laughlin joins us next. And I'm not sure, Scott, if you were riveted to your screen for that last interview with Gord Stellick. We've been trying for years, literally, to get your partner on. We had his email wasn't working. He was wondering why we never asked him and always had you. Communication's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Well, look, you should have just asked me, Ron. I would have hooked you guys up. I would have introduced you guys. And just like Gord Stellick, just always coming on and trying to upstage me. So here he comes. But in all seriousness, you've listened to the program before, Rod. You know how it works. He carries the show.
I love the way what's your relationship like, without prying? I'm going to pry anyways, away from the studio, because you tease the heck out of each other in the studio. Is it like it outside the building?
Yeah, I think, Gord and I, at the end of the day, we're not going over to each other's houses for barbecues during the summer. But at the end of the day, we do have, I think, a great deal of respect for one another. We've each been doing this, like you, Rod, for a long, long time now. And I've got a lot of respect for anybody who's stuck around our business, Rod, like yourself and like Gord, for as long as we have, because it's a very unstable business, if you know what I mean. I met Gord for the first time back in 1992, and I was a young reporter for the then Standard Broadcast News. We were the competing newswire service for all the radio stations in Canada. So I worked at Standard, and I got sent down to a bunch of Leafs games. Gord was working color on radio with the Leafs back then. He had finished up as the general manager and was working color. I was sitting next to the woman who turned out to be Gord's wife in the press box, Lisa, and we struck up a conversation. And during one of the intermissions, he said, "Oh yeah, here's my husband, Gord Stellick." And I was in awe. I was like, "This is the Gord Stellick, the former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is the team I grew up idolizing." And so all these years, and we've kept in touch after all these years, but all these years later, we get to do a radio show together each and every morning and talk about hockey. So it's a fun existence, and he's a great guy to work with.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say all how things have changed since then. From here, I'm going to do a podcast on the Panthers and Lightning with Bill Lindsay. We didn't barely have the internet back then, let alone how things have changed. But anyways, I enjoy how much fun you guys have on there, and enjoyed your interview with my good friend Shane Knighty today. We have a bit of a theme, Scott, and it is today, which non-playoff team, if you could only pick one, do you expect to make it this year? It feels like everybody's got a different one. Who would be yours?
Well, I think the low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to take this, Rod, I think is going to be New Jersey. I think that situation sets up really well for Sheldon Keefe to move in there. For all the criticism Sheldon Keefe took as the head coach of the Leafs, we know one problem he didn't have, Rod, and that was winning hockey games during the regular season, right? The Devils come in, they've improved their goaltending from the outset. They're more stable in goal. With Jake Allen backing up Jacob Markstrom, if he stays healthy and plays anywhere close to the way he did in Calgary over the course of that tenure, I think New Jersey's going to be better off for it. I think you've got a 100-point guy in Jack Hughes. I think Dougie Hamilton comes back and makes that team a little bit deeper on the back end. Simon Nemec maybe takes that next step as well. So they've got a real good mix, I think, of veterans and youth. They've stabilized the goaltending. They've got a great regular season coach in the fold now, and I think he gets them back to the postseason.
I don't know if you personally know Sheldon Keefe, and even if you did, I'm not sure he'd say, but what do you think he learned in Toronto that he could take forth to New Jersey? Because look at Travis Green's been fired. You learn every time. Look at Tortorella's been fired everywhere. They still keep getting jobs, and I would think they learn where they go. What do you think Keefe learned in Toronto?
Well, you're so right, Rod, because any coach that we've talked to that gets a second or a third opportunity always says, "Hey, I learned a lot from the first existence, and I learned to correct these mistakes, and I'm a better coach for it." We just had Don Granato on the show, former Sabres head coach, yesterday. He's going to be our Tuesday morning NHL Network Radio Hockey Insider. We went out for a team dinner on Monday night, and just to talk hockey with Don off the record, some of it on the record, was fantastic. And the same sort of thing. He gets an opportunity now to sit back and see the entire league, see the way other teams operate, because let's face it, when you're in the midst of your own team, that's all you deal with on a day-in, day-out basis. The interesting thing when it comes to Sheldon, as you know, Rod, he had little to no downtime with which to scout the rest of the league. So he's just simply playing off of coaching the Toronto Maple Leafs, arguably the most popular franchise in the NHL. Certainly up in Canada, they in Montreal will make the case for all that. I just think he's probably going to be better off. He doesn't have to deal with the same amount of media, right? Let's face that, and let's get that out of the way right off the hop there. So it'll be a little bit easier for him to deal with the media pressure. And I think from this point forward, his job is to get New Jersey back to the playoffs. For the Leafs, it was about advancing in the playoffs. Right now in New Jersey for 24-25, they would take just getting back into the postseason, throwing their hat in the ring, see how far they can take it. Different expectations, I think, in New Jersey. And I think for that, it's going to make him a better coach. And I think you make some adjustments along the way. I mean, the power play they had in Toronto was lights out good. And instead of having Austin Matthews run your power play ostensibly with everything going through him, it'll be going through Jack Hughes now as well. So I think every coach picks up a little bit here or there as far as X's and O's and systems are concerned. But I think even the littlest things, like we say, dealing with the media, the expectations, the pressure that comes along with being a National Hockey League head coach, as we know, markedly different in the Garden State as compared to Toronto.
Well, and maybe a little anonymity too. Like, have you lived anywhere other than Toronto in your life, Scott?
Just Ottawa, because I went to Carleton University, the best university on the planet, Carleton Ravens, still trying to win our second football game of the season, Rod, but we've got Panda coming up against the U of Zero. Anyway, having said that, no, it was just Ottawa, going to Carleton University.
Again, the reason I ask is all this time I've spent in Calgary and my good friends, like, it's insane flames there. Insane. 24/7. But the Tim Hunters, the Lanny McDonalds, the Jamie McCowans, the Colin Pedersen, who's from Toronto, all the guys that have lived in both cities, they're like, it's 10 times worse in Toronto. And I'm like, how could it be? I can't even imagine what it would be like in Toronto to be the head coach of that hockey team, man. It's just insane. Is that like that for you, Scott?
It kind of feels that way. I mean, anything that these guys do gets magnified. And I often laugh too, Rod, when I hear players say, it would be great to play in a hockey mad market like Toronto. Wouldn't it be fantastic to be around a fan base that's as passionate as Leafs Nation is, about fans who really care about every move that we make in the whole bit? And then they get to Toronto and you lose 6 out of 7, and all of a sudden, you know, the bloom comes off the rose, so to speak, right? All of a sudden, you're like, what have I gotten myself into here? Man, is this going to get any worse? So, again, be careful what you wish for. Only a certain number of players, only the right types of players, like the Newendykes and the Roberts coming back to Ontario, can succeed in Toronto. It's a hockey hotbed. It's like Montreal. When you're winning, everybody loves you. When you're losing, boy, it's a tough town to play in.
Ooh. Yeah, well, Ryan Getzlaff, I did an event with him, and he was like, I would have always liked to have played for a Canadian team. I'm like, Ryan, stop it. You had a great career in Anaheim. You won a Stanley Cup. You're going to the Hall of Fame. Everybody wants what they can't have, which, by the way, that's Saskatchewan in the CFL. And Moose DuPont was telling me, Darren Moose DuPont, just as I wind this up, he was in your studio recently, and he says that you're doing some CFL stuff. I see Sirius and the CFL announced an extension today to their deal. What are you doing with the CFL, Scott?
Well, this season, Rod, I've been doing a weekly interview, and the Canadian Football League PR department has hooked me up with a player that usually had a great week just the week before. So I've enjoyed really getting back into it, diving into it head first. Being solely, exclusively in and around the NHL the last 20 years or so, I've missed the Canadian Football League. You know it better than anybody, Rod. The guys are great to deal with. Fantastic individuals for the most part up and down throughout the league. It's been great to get back into it. I mean, I've talked to everybody this season from Bo Levi Mitchell, and boy, if Hamilton gets into the playoffs, look out. He just might be the MOP once again, but they still have some heavy lifting to do to make sure that happens. So whether it's Tyson Philpott or whether it's Justin McInnes or Bo Levi Mitchell or Winton McManus, whoever the case might be, it's been great to talk with these guys once again and just get a piece of what the CFL's got to offer here as we head down the stretch.
Awesome. Awesome to hear. Scott, thanks for the time, man. Enjoy the season. I hope we can do it again soon. And keep on keeping on, brother. Keep on trucking.
Anytime you call, Rod, I'm there to answer it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. SiriusXM NHL Radio's Scott Laughlin.